huge fan of the subject that they made him to be on a show played by Mark Wahlberg, who I've got to know as well, who's a good friend of Pat Perez, golfer. I can't thank him enough, Smitty, for jumping on the show with us. The Philadelphia Eagle legend himself. We share something in common. I was in OTAs, obviously, with the Kansas City Chiefs and Dick Vermeil. So I got some Dick Vermeil questions to ask him as well. But our main man, Vince Papale, joins the show.
Yeah. Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Nice. How you doing, brother? Appreciate you joining us, man. Can't thank you enough.
Well, can't thank you enough. How's that cigar at 8:30 in the morning out there on the West Coast? Are you kidding me?
Oh, man, it's been 6:30. At 6 o'clock, I start these up, brother.
Oh, that's his fourth one.
That's my third one.
I'd be up all night with a bottle of bourbon to be good to be pulling that one off. So I'm directly across. You just draw a line from where you are and come all the way across the country. And right now I'm in the golf capital of the world, and that's Jupiter, Florida.
Oh, yeah. Well, Shaun King's he's a Florida boy himself. Mm-hmm. So, but you're a Philly guy, correct?
Well, sort of, yeah. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, but yeah, I'm a Philly guy, Philly fan. I still follow everything that's going on there. But, it was interesting because the movie, a lot of the things that happened in the movie, everybody asks how real it is. A lot of things that happened were happening right outside in the periphery. But in order to get the tax credit and in order to get all this other stuff, everything had to be within the confines of Philly. So, but you can call me whatever you want. Just call me. So yeah, Philly works.
Hey, you got a son who's playing. I know he was playing in this XFL UFL deal. A couple former players of mine were on the team with him, and a couple coaches of mine coached him. Is he still on that? Is he still playing right now this year?
No, he's not. As a matter of fact, where is it? Right there. That's the jersey he wore when he represented the United States when he was in high school. Excuse me. I believe it or not, I just came off of heart surgery, so I have a little bit of anesthesia.
Man,
still working there. Yeah, I had anybody out there that had AFib. Here we go. They get that ablation and put it in there. But Vinny. So Vinny turned 28. And he had 3 seasons in the USFL, UFL, after the merger. And after this past year, after leading the league in touchdown receptions up until the last game and also leading the league in tackles on special teams, we touched base with several NFL teams and 2 head coaches. And they said at 28, we're just not looking, as a wide receiver. He was a slot receiver. His size, he's 6'1", 215. He runs a legit 4.4. But here's the really cool thing. I'm of Italian descent, as you might know. Papale is papal. And so Vinny was going after he wanted to get his dual citizenship. And Italy found out about it. And the Italian Football League called him and said, we can help you out. We would love to have you come play for our Italian team and also be in our Olympic flag football, so flag football and the NFL, So anyway, to make the long story short, Vinny, he's going to be playing for Italy in the flag football championship. He played this past summer in Helsinki in the World Championship, 32 teams, and he was a top receiver, top everything there for them. And it's sort of funny, Coach. Because you know how it is, when you're coaching somebody, you're coaching a wide receiver, and you're telling them, I just prepare for the hit. And he said, Dad, the first couple of times I was out there in the game, in practice, I didn't expect to get hit. He said, but when I get out there in the game, and I catch it, and I put the ball, and I tuck, and I duck myself like that, waiting to get hit. And he get a flag called on him because they would say he was trying to hide the flag, right? He didn't realize that they can't slam you, but he's got it down pretty good. He's getting married actually in 3 weeks on May 3rd.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's all success.
Nah, he was balling, man. I knew he was balling, and I was like, shit. And I didn't put it together until I was like, wait up, is that Vince Papale's kid? This was a few years ago, and I was like, wow. Unbelievable story, man. From you to I got so many questions, but I got these 2 fine gentlemen that I know have some as well. I got the one I want to ask you, though, that someone wanted me to ask you. So on the movie, you met the movie portrays that you were working at a bar, and then the owner's niece came out. Is that your wife in real life? The
In real life,
portrayal
yeah.
of that.
You see that right behind me?
Yep.
That's the jersey she wore. You remember a gymnast for the USA back in the Olympic days and the Munich days named Kathy Rigby?
Kathy
Yeah,
Rigby.
anyway, she was the premier. She was a premier gymnast in the world. My wife Janet was on the USA World Gymnastics team, and what they did is when we're figuring out this love interest kind of thing. I've been divorced, and I've been divorced for like 15, 20 years, and there was a little something going on there. So with the NFL, what they wanted to do is, in order to get their endorsement, Mark Giardi and Gordon Gray, our producers, went to the NFL. And they, first of all, turned us down because we needed to get that intellectual property rights, and being able to use the logo and do all the other advertising kind of stuff that surrounds the movie. And then eventually the NFL gave in, and they said, but this is the stipulation. We want her to be a Giants fan and also a bartender. And in the original script, which I'm looking at right here, the original script actually has me having bartending at the team where I was playing in those rough touch leagues. And there was a pool that was out there because Dick Vermeil was coming in town and he was having a tryout. And my name somehow wound up in that pool. First of all, would I go there? Number one. And number two, would I make it? And in the original, she comes down and she slaps 20 down and she says, my money's on you. But, it's a Disney movie. They wanted to get back then. They wanted to get rid of the gambling. So at any rate, that's what they made her. And really at that particular time when I was 30, I was actually on a leave of absence from teaching at my alma mater. I was working my master's degree. I was the head track coach, assist football coach, and I was actually trying to qualify for the Olympic trials in the decathlon, and that didn't quite make it. But I decided to try semi-pro football, and semi-pro football led up to the NFL. So at that time, when I was trying to go back and get my teaching job and to get this football crap out of my way, my high school right by the Philly airport put me on a leave of absence until next year. So that's when they picked it up. But I wish they'd have gone back a little bit deeper like they did with Rookie, and Rudy and all that stuff. Who's Rudy, my man Rudy, he's a trip. But that's the long story of it.
No doubt. Great story. Shit.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing for sure. I wanted to ask you too, just to kind of continue down that road. Being a guy who's basically from Philly, Philly adjacent, and to play for your hometown team, like once you officially made the roster, just kind of describe the emotions, the feeling, just what was that like? I can only imagine. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I can just only imagine getting picked up by my Colts, the team I grew up cheering for my entire life. How did that feel?
Oh my God, you can't even frickin' imagine, man. And I like to fill in the real word for frickin', but I can't.
You can if you want to. You do what you want.
With me.
That's all right. I'm still trying to be a role model for whatever that means.
Me too. CJ Stroud.
If they're out there anymore. In reality, it was pretty crazy, and when it came down to where they were going to make the last cut, I was actually leading the team in touchdowns and receptions, including Hal Carmichael, who he was injured a little bit during training camp. So I got a lot of opportunities out there, regardless of my age. And Coach Vermeil, each game, he put me in special teams, and I was banging it on special teams as a gunner. And then not too, but I was running a legit 4-4 back then in the day. And at any rate, I didn't know, and I was a season ticket holder. That's the key.
Damn.
I was a season ticket holder for 10 years. When I was collegian at St. Joe's, I was on a track scholarship at St. Joe's, and Jack Ramsey was the basketball coach. They didn't have a football team, and it was all men. And I had season tickets for $60 then, and then it transferred over to the vet when the Eagles wound up going to Veterans Stadium. And I'm sitting in the stands, and then eventually I get to be playing down there. So here we are. It's the final day. It's the final cut, and the Turk comes over, a guy by the name of Bill Davis, and Bill Davis comes over, and we knew he was going to cut somebody because there were 6 wide receivers, and they were going to keep 5. And he looked at me, and he just started laughing, and I grabbed my playbook, thinking that I'm the guy, right? And he looks right at me and laughed even more. And he goes and picks another guy, and he says, "Bring your playbook." So I still wasn't told I had made the team. So we get out on the field now, and the field, the Phillies, and you know how it was back in the day in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and all those cities. They had those combined stadiums, and we had one of those combined stadiums. So now we're all out there in right field because it's the spring, and the Eagles are getting set up for, and the team. I mean the baseball is going on, the MLB is going on, and then Coach Vermeil. And I'm looking around. I'm still not told him we're playing the Dallas Cowboys the next week. And I'm looking around, looking at my seats, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, if my boys could just see me right now, my dad be up there, the whole deal. And Coach Vermeil walked over, and he had this little smirk on his face. And he looked, and I says, oh, here it comes. He's just going to cut my ass right now, right? That MFer. But it didn't happen. He just smiled. He says, hey, Papale, he says, great job, man. He says, welcome to the team. You're a Philadelphia Eagle. And
I think what the movie displayed it like out in the car or the parking lot.
Yeah, it was right before that what they did, and it's great you brought that up. That's pretty astute on your part, because the Rudy moment when Rudy found out he was going to go to Notre Dame, and he called his dad, at the warehouse and all, and they had this tearful kind of a phone call. Well, I did the same thing, so I asked Coach. I said, Coach, oh, geez, are you kidding me? And so, I like jumped in his arms and was hugging him. I said, oh, I can't believe I'm going to be a Philadelphia Eagle. So I said, can I make a phone call? So he started laughing, and he says, what, are you going to have a press conference already? I said, no. I said, can I go call my dad and let him know that I'm going to be a Philadelphia Eagle? And, so the baseball stadium set up, and there was a payphone right outside the Phillies dugout. And I run into the Phillies dugout. I get the shop steward at Westinghouse where my dad was working. And I said, Slim, tell Kingy, his little boy, and my dad's nickname was Kingy. I said, tell Kingy, his little boy is a Philadelphia Eagle. And, it erupted. And that's the real story. But because we didn't want to accuse of plagiarism and anything else like that, we created that one scene where Coach Vermeil brings me in. And I go and I'm going to take my playbook. I give it to him. He says, pushes it back. He said, you might want to hold on to that for a while. That was a great scene. And they did a beautiful job putting it together. But, it worked out great.
Man, that's special. That's special right there. Shaun, I know if you had anything I want to.
So, Vince, I don't know if you remember, but we did an event together back in, this probably was like 07, 08. We hosted a breakfast for the St. Petersburg Bowl. I think it was March.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah. How you been, man?
I'm doing great. I'm just right down the road now. I'm right around the corner, as they say.
Yeah. So I wanted to, first of all, congratulate you on your success, man. To have accomplished the things you have and experienced that is unbelievable. But then to be able to monetize those experiences is something unbelievable. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm from Florida. So when you hear somebody from Florida say they live in Jupiter, that's a soft flex. The median average net worth to live in Jupiter is like 9 figures. So, I mean, shout out to my guy VP. I mean, your neighbors down there, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, just for people that don't understand where Jupiter is in Florida. But I said all that to say this. At this point, with all the experiences, all the accomplishments, all the success, is there anything else that you haven't done, experienced, accomplished that you're still pursuing?
Well, other than becoming a grandfather, no, not really. And it's funny you say, I live on a golf course here, and I came down here about 9 years ago, where I was living in suburban Philadelphia, Cherry Hill. My kids going to school up there and all that stuff. And a guy calls me up at a Clear Blue Sky and said, what's your fee for me to come down and speak to this charity golf outing for the police? It's COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors. And I said, you don't want to know. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, why don't you just buy me a couple beers, give me a hotel room, and, we'll call it a day. And then we came down here and then just fell in love with it. My wife, Janet, the great athlete, the gymnast, the tennis player, the golfer, was living in Boynton Beach, and Boynton. And so living in Boynton Beach at that time in 92, 93. And so when I first met her, and we just looked at here, and we're in Turtle Creek, and if I went over to the clubhouse right now, I'd probably see Ernie Els or Ricky Fowler, or I mean, anyone of 15, and it's insane. I mean, your head like snapping around. You're like Linda Blair in the original Exorcist. Your head's just spinning. But it's just really cool, and I've ingrained myself in the community. And speaking of the devil, here comes the gymnast. Maybe she'll pop in and say hi. But yeah, I'm in. Believe it or not, I'm in my garage. And,
Okay.
And this is the back wall. I got the door wide open because it's just spectacular. I'm looking out. I don't want to brag, but I'm looking at palm trees and all that crap.
Oh, I told you it's a soft flex. It's a soft flex, JB. You live in Jupiter.
Well, Coach JB, he's also in a garage, so you both got a nice garage set up. It sounds like. So me and Shaun need to step our game up, Shaun.
Hey, Vince, I got to ask you. College-wise, didn't you get a scholarship as a pole vaulter or something?
Yes, I did. Yep.
And what happened with that?
Well,
so explain that.
It happened. Here, hey, Jan, come on up and say hi to the guys. So here she comes.
I love it. I love the authenticity.
Okay.
JB.
Authenticity.
All right, here she goes. Here we go, Danny.
Here's the greatest athlete of the family. How you doing?
How you doing?
Hello.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure
Pleasure to meet you.
Man, I can't thank you guys enough.
All right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, they say I outkicked my coverage. So
Okay, yeah.
with that one, 30. It's been 31 years. What was the question again now?
Your pole vaulting career, you went to college. How did that so you go scholarship there? Was football ever like a consideration? I know you did triple jump, long jump. I know you did all kind of stuff.
I did all kinds of stuff. Yeah, actually football was really in my mind, and I was always told I was too small to play football. When I was 14 years old, I was only 4'10", 4'11", 80, 85 pounds. And then all of a sudden, what a lot of people don't know, my mom was institutionalized with mental illness, and I was dealing with all that kind of stuff, So it wasn't all that comfortable with myself, but a good athlete. And then all of a sudden in high school, I got up to 5'7" when in my senior year, about 160. And my junior high school phys ed teacher and coach for football said, "Come on out. I want you to come out for the football team." He said, "How come you didn't play football earlier?" And he said, I was told I was too small. And he says, "I'm giving you a shot." And when you know it, he gave me that shot to play football. And I wound up leading the team in the county in receptions and this and that. But because I was coming in as a first-year senior, nobody saw me. I had no offers. But I was going to go to Westchester State Teachers College because my science teacher became their freshman coach, and he was going to give me basically a free agent tryout. So I'm not doing anything in the spring. And my high school football coach and all, he becomes the head track coach. And he said, "Vinny," he says, "I need you, man. You're the fastest kid in the school, and I want you to do the sprints, do the hurdles." And I says, "Can I pole vault?" And he said, he said, "Your dad," I knew when I talked to your dad, I knew you were going to say that. And he said, "Yeah, I'll give you a shot." Well, when you know it, I wound up getting a track scholarship at St. Joe's in the pole vault. And, a couple other schools in the neighborhood said I wasn't a good enough athlete. I remember one school, you'll appreciate this, Coach, because you brought up all the events. Remember one school, because I eventually wound up I led off the 440 relay. I did the long jump, triple jump, and pole vault, and whatever other. And I had 4 firsts. And after the meet was over, the guy that told me I wasn't a good enough athlete, I said, "Well, what do you think of me now?" And I'm going to be around for the next 4 years. But
let me ask you this: you played 3 years. Was that true? And I know I looked up your real stats. Like you made that roster for 3 consecutive years for the Eagles.
I got 3 years in, and the irony is I was the captain of the team my second year, and which was really cool. And then the third year I had surgery, but I finished out the third year. We wound up playing. First time we got back in the playoffs for years, decades maybe. We were playing Atlanta in a wild card game, and then I separated this shoulder here. and I had surgery, and I came back for the 4th year. And the first game of the preseason against the original Baltimore Colts at a Johnny Unitas Baltimore Colts at Municipal Stadium in Baltimore. And I re-separated this shoulder, and I dislocated this one because I was trying to get even with the guy that cheap shotted me. And but what happened is it carried me through on injured reserve, and I got 4 years credit. And I got,
wow.
Yeah, I got it. You know what? And I get a pension, man, which is really cool.
Hell yeah. And I gotta ask the elephant in the room question though. Like, so break down the truth of this whole thing, because there's a lot of confusion out there. A lot of people I don't think realize. So you scored a touchdown in I know on the movie it shows you scored that touchdown versus the Giants. In theory, was the truth you scored against the Patriots, or did you score in that Giants game, but at the time you could not advance a punt block? Is that the truth of the story? What is that?
Yeah, you sort of have a little bit of each, you know. First of all, it was against the Giants. It was the first home game the Eagles had. And I had already in the movie, in the Cowboys game, which was the first game, you know, they made it look like I was a real slug, you know, a deer in the headlight syndrome and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're coming back. And I'm having a hell of a game as a gunner. I've already got a three solos on punt returns. You know, poor Jimmy Robinson. So now we're having a punt toward the end of the game. You know, coach, you just had a punt. So I'm getting double teamed out there on the right-hand side. And I had my moves. And, you know, so what I'm doing is I'm running down there. And I ran one of the guys that was covering me. I ran him right into Jimmy Robinson. And Jimmy coughed up the ball, and you can see it on YouTube, you know, when you see the
real footage,
and it came right into my hands, and I run into the end zone. Well, they called it a muff, you know, the M-U-F word, and so they called it a muff, and they brought it back to the 8-yard line. But anyway, we wound up scoring on that drive, and we wound up winning the game, and it was Coach Vermeil's first win, and I was invited and accepted by my teammates because we had a team party that night. And I was sitting there with Carmichael and Bergie, and I mean, it was so cool.
Hey, so I got so many questions, but I don't want to leave these guys out. But that whole depiction of they didn't accept you were the outlier. Right. You're the guy that walked on during a tryout and all that stuff. First question: was the tryout kind of similar? Was it just a bunch of anyone's that came out there and you make it out of all that? And then B, were you really not accepted, and you had to show yourself in that Giant game to get accepted?
All of the above, you know.
Wow.
I thought I showed myself in the preseason. We had 6 preseason games then, 6, right?
Yeah.
And guys actually tackled. Guys actually
had to play.
We had the nutcracker drill.
Respect.
Yeah, you remember all those things. So you know that's what really happened, and so the tryout was pretty interesting because I was on a list. The Coach Vermeil didn't know about the list, but I was on a list, and because I was on the list, I was able to go down to the Eagles locker room and dress up. So what they did is they actually put a jersey on me, and they put on number 83 on me. And I'm looking around, and I'm seeing all my idols. I'm a season ticket holder now, and I'm looking around this locker room, and it's holy shit. So I'm trying to get out of the stadium. If you've ever been to Veteran Stadium, it's one of those subterranean stadiums, and I got lost. And eventually, by the time I was able to get up out of the stadium, find my way, and go all the way across to where the JFK Stadium was, where they used to have the Army-Navy game, and by the time I got there, they had already started stretching. And Coach Vermeil looked at me, not knowing who I was. Says, 83, what's your problem? I said, I had equipment issues. And so he said, just get in line, you know. So I got in line, I warmed up, and in the corner of the stadium, my father was there in his Westinghouse blues, and he's yelling, "Vincey," that was my nickname, "Vincey, you can do it, you can do it." And when they popped that 40, Coach sort of remembered me, and he said, come on, let's put him in for a couple of other. And then they had a 7-on-7, and it was just like in those touch leagues, you know. It was the bar leagues that I played in, so that was a piece of cake. And right after the workout was over, everybody else was told to go home. I went back down the Eagles locker room, and they told me to report up to the 4th floor and I now knew how to get up to the elevator. And I get up to the 4th floor, and they signed me for 21 grand. But as I walked past Coach Vermeil's office, he knew my name, and he said, "You look pretty good out there. You look pretty good." I said, "Thanks, Coach." And so I signed a contract for 21 grand. That was around April of '76. And I said, "Was that mean I make the team?" He said, "No, it means nobody else can touch you. Not that they want to, but that was it." So now, I'm trying out, and the first week, which was 4th of July, it's a bicentennial, so there's a lot of celebrating going on in the city. And that first week, it was just rookies and free agents, and Roman Gabriel was the quarterback for that.
Hell yeah.
Came in and did it. Yeah. I had trained with Gabe for 2 or 3 months prior to coming into training camp, so he just kept throwing at me, And I have a defensive mentality, even though I was an offensive player. And I would hit anything that moved that was on the other side of the field that had a different color jersey than me. Yeah. I did not make too many friends with that. And then the veterans come in, and and I started doing the same thing to the veterans. And what really pissed them off is when we were doing a nutcracker drill and they put me head to head with a defensive back. I said, "Now I want somebody tougher than a D-back. Give me a linebacker." And that was the beginning of the hate. But,
so that was all true too. That part of the movie.
That was true. So it was really true is all the guys that were the football players, the pro football players and the semi-pro players and whatever they were, and those rough touch players, they were all Arena Football League players, active players, and a couple of former NFL players, which was really cool. So the intensity and the action, and it was so hot, it get muddy out there sometimes, the fights were real. I have an hour reel of stuff. I took 100 hours of video while that was going on, and Disney condensed it. But they did not appreciate me too much until toward the end of the season, after we were playing the Miami Dolphins, and the coach showed a highlight of what I did the night before. I had 4 catches and a few hits and a few scuffles, and he said, "This guy shouldn't even be here, but he's going to make the team." And that's when everything flipped. And then all of a sudden, one of the defense, "Hey, you're giving this, you're throwing your elbow up, Carmichael. Hey, Vinny, hey, Pazan." And, and then that started happening, and I wound up making the team, which was really
How
cool.
did they, Shaun, you jump in, and Smitty, how did they approach you for this movie?
For me?
Yeah. How did they approach you, like, to say, "Hey, this was going to be the show. Like this is going to be like this. We want to do this about you." And then how did Mark Wahlberg become the guy that was you?
Well, I never thought it was going to be Wahlberg. I thought it was going to be Danny DeVito, but not Wahlberg. But, how did they approach me? So there's this guy that's running around. Yeah, there it is right there, and I have the same thing right here. So that's it, So Rocky is turning 25, the movie, in 2002. NFL contacts me, NFL Films, which is right around the corner from where I was living in Cherry Hill, in Morristown. And this guy, Pete DiStefano, he says, "We want to do a feature on Monday Night Football for distant replay. And we're going to have Jerry Rice on the other side because you're playing the 49ers. And we'd like to compare you. Rocky has given us the permission to use clips from Rocky and to bring you in and compare you as to Rocky, like the real life Rocky kind of a thing, as a celebration." So they showed it, and Ron Jaworski and the late great Stuart Scott were the commentators in the pregame then, and they were laughing, having a good old time. I had 100 people at my house. I mean, we called everybody, and Janet, she's great. We had them all, man, and And I saw the clip for the first time. It's on YouTube, and I saw the clip for the first time. And the next day, Hollywood came calling, and the guy that created America's Next Top Model, Ken Mock, he wrote a spec script with Brad Gann, who had already written a couple scripts that were turned into films. And after the script was written and we approved the script in 2004, they had an auction in October. And they gave each one of you guys got a script, and you went to your favorite studio, whatever it was, your favorite producer. And the guys that did Miracle and Rookie got the hand, and they took it to Disney. And as soon as Disney saw it, they said, "This is our next movie." And that's how it started. And as far as Mark Wahlberg was concerned, in the soundtrack, which is just absolutely insanity, from the 70s music. I had no idea. I didn't even know who Mark Wahlberg was, actually. Everybody, they kept saying, hey, man, you got Dirk Diggler playing you, babe, but
Dirk Diggler.
So what, Marky Mark from the Funky Bunch. And, Mark and I became like this. And I'm looking right now at the scooter, the Honda scooter that he drove around the set with my kids in the back. Now, Gabby's 11, Vinny's 8. And they were like he adopted children. And that's how I started. And it came out right around Labor Day in 2006 and ran #1 in the box office for 2 weeks. And here we go. Here we are talking to you all.
Unbelievable.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've got one last question. I'm gonna let Shaun kind of close it out. I'm sure you've had just a ton of amazing just stories and memories from your time playing with Philly. But what would you say is this the one biggest and just greatest memory you had with the Eagles on field memories? Is there a certain play or a moment that it stands out the most for you?
Yeah. Yes, it was. Actually, was that first game, obviously the first home game against the Giants, which was the one. Nobody really knew much about me, even though there were posters and there was all kinds of things around the stadium. But I think that the moment that meant the most to me, basically when I was voted captain of the team, my second year. It wasn't a hit or anything else like that. What it did is it validated everything that I had dreamed about, everything I had worked for. It validated the whole thing, and all that dream coming true. And I'll be in Miami speaking on Tuesday to a group of people who are starting a new business and what they're doing and what their roles are going to be are totally different than what they're doing today. And I said that's what Invincible is all about. It's that dream, the impossible, the undoable, the unthinkable, those kinds of things. And I think that was the thing that, when I was voted captain of the team, it sort of validated it all. And it closed that open circle that was there, that one thing that was missing. And I didn't know it would be the NFL. And who would ever think that got a freaking movie, for Christ's sake. And, here we are. And it's really cool. It's like really freaking cool.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Amazing, man. Amazing. That's all I got, JB. I think I'm good to go, man. That's a beautiful story, and we appreciate you, hopping on, giving us that insight. I know JB, like he said, he been talking about this interview all week long. Said he was coming in here with a list of questions to see what was real from the movie, what was fake. So we appreciate you for giving.
Hey Vince, last thing, Vince, for me, if Shaun don't have nothing to say,
I'm good.
Sounds good.
Shaun played quarterback too, Vince. Shaun played in the league, played quarterback, won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. So he
baby.
He's been there. Yeah, the show shows you making the team and then kind of going back to the roots and playing tackle football in the rain with your boys. Were you really that batshit crazy to go out there and hit those cats when you made that roster?
No freaking way, baby.
Okay.
But what I did is, all the guys we were playing against, they were all buddies of ours. We played against each other in high school and all that, and they had their local bar and I had mine, had my Max's and Deacon Ale House, Cannon's Cafe. I played for 3 or 4 actually different bars. So what I did is I had to do that reconnection. And the reconnection, because I wasn't feeling all that great. They were making me feel great after the Cowboys game. And that was it. That one scene where that little boy runs out in front of the car and picks up.
Yes, with your number, with your jersey?
That's Vinny. That's my son, Vinny.
Ah, shit. Okay.
And my daughter, Gabriella, who's getting married in June. That's where Janet just came with Gabriella. Gabriella is the quarterback. She can do a Tom Brady, man, like you can't believe, But anyway.
Wait, so did that happen? Did that happen, though? Did the kid cross you with your number on his jersey?
Well, something similar to that was prior me and Denny Franks, my teammate, roommate and all. We did a pregame. We always had a pregame ritual, driving around, putting Santana on, just getting ourselves ready for the game. And we went, and there was a right next to the stadium, there was a football field, and there was a kid there that had number 83 stenciled on his T-shirt. So he ran out into the street, and I just stopped the car. I didn't say anything, and then I said, I got to do this, man. So I got out of the car and I said, hey, dude, I said, you want to have a catch? And he said, yeah. So we started having a catch. And then I said, throw me a couple bombs, you know. So I went and I just jogged it down. And he looks at me and he says, man, if I didn't know any better, I'd swear you were Vince Papale. And I took my hat off, my sunglasses off, and the kid almost flipped. And
Damn,
that's how they created that scene. But, you know, just as I know you got to close out here, but here, you can't ever do it in anything that you're doing without the coaches that we have and the mentors that we have. You can't do it alone. And my high school coach, he gave me this great quote, and he said, happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make their dreams come true. And it's one of my favorite sayings. And the question is, you know, anybody can have that dream. And if you're just looking at it and you're not willing to pay the price, you're just you're a nobody. You're just a dreamer, you know, it'll never happen. You've got to be able to.
I'll be honest, after heart surgery and you coming on this show and as spry as you are, and it's impressive. Let me just tell you, brother, it's impressive, man. Kudos to you and the family.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm a blessed man. I got a wedding coming up on May 3rd and June 13th. So say your prayers for me, baby.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Hell yeah. Hey, I'll be reaching out again, man. I'll have to come see you eventually, no doubt. My boy is a live golfer now. He's announcing they're down in Miami with the live golf.
I just saw that on the air. When is that?
This weekend, I believe. It started yesterday.
Oh, did it? Oh, man.
Pro-am, and then today, tomorrow, and Sunday.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah. I wish your son good luck, and man, I'll be in Miami on Tuesday, but
definitely. Hey, love it, man. There's about 3,700 people in here that are gonna go watch your movie today. I'm telling you that.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
Hey, man, appreciate you, brother.
You have a good one.
Pleasure.
Fly goes fly, baby.
Hell yeah.
Super Bowl champions.